The storm hit like God's own fury, ripping shingles from the barn roof and pelting the earth with hailstones big as fists, turning the Wyoming sky into a churning black cauldron. I was out in the paddock, wrestling a spooked mare back into the stable, when lightning cracked so close it singed the air and fried the fence line, sparks dancing like fireflies on steroids. That's when I saw him, staggering out of the tree-line like a ghost from some old western, soaked to the bone, one arm cradling ribs that looked like they'd taken a beating from hell itself. "Get in here, damn it!" I yelled over the thunder, my voice barely cutting through the roar. He stumbled toward the ranch house, collapsing against the porch rail just as I reached him, his breath coming in ragged gasps that smelled of rain and fear. Up close, he was younger than I'd figured. Mid-20s maybe, with mud-streaked blonde hair plastered to a face sharp as a hawk's, green eyes wide and feral, like he'd run straight out of a nightmare. I hauled him inside, the screen door banging shut behind us, and that's when the rail storm broke. He slid down the wall in the mudroom, knees buckling, and clutched at my shirt with fingers that trembled like aspen leaves. "They're coming," he rasped, voice cracking like dry timber. "My brother. He said he'd kill me if I ever came back. But I couldn't. I couldn't stay hidden anymore." I froze, the weight of his words hitting harder than any blizzard. "My name's James Harlan, and this ranch 300 acres of sagebrush and stubborn cattle tucked in the shadow of the Bighorn Mountains. It's been my fortress for 8 years now. Ever since Tommy left me for some city boy with a trust fund and a law degree, swearing our life out here was too small for his dreams. I'd built these walls high after that, brick by bloody brick, telling myself love was just another word for loss. But here was the stranger, spilling his guts on my floor like it was confession time at St. Mary's, and something in those haunted eyes cracked me open wider than I thought possible. "Easy now," I murmured, kneeling beside him, my calloused hands steady on his shoulder. He flinched at first, then leaned into it like a colt testing the reins. "Nobody's coming through that storm tonight. What's your name, kid?" "Eli," he whispered, wiping rain, or was it tears, from his cheek. "Eli Kane. And James. Thank you. I didn't think I'd make it another mile." I got him to the couch in the living room, wrapped him in a wool blanket that still smelled faintly of my grandfather's pipe tobacco, and fired up the old cast-iron stove to boil water for coffee. The house creaked around us, wind howling through the eaves like a banshee, but inside it was warm, the kind of warmth that seeps into bones frozen by more than just weather. Eli sipped the mug I handed him, steam curling up like secrets, and that's when he started talking. Not all at once, but in fits and starts like pulling thorns from a wound. He was from Cheyenne, just a 4-hour drive south, but it might as well have been another country. Grew up in a trailer park on the edge of town. Father long gone, mother working doubles at the diner to keep the lights on. Eli had always known he was different. Loved the boys in his class instead of the girls. Dreamed of hands rough with grease instead of dresses soft as clouds. But in a place like Wyoming, where the wind whispers "man up," and the Bible thumpers shout it from pulpits, different meant dangerous. His brother, Caleb, was the enforcer. Big as a bull, mean as the devil, fresh out of the pen for boosting cars when Eli was just 16. Caleb had caught him once, kissing a farmhand behind the bleachers at the county fair. The beating that followed left Eli with 3 cracked ribs and a promise. "You pull that fag shit again, and I'll bury you where the coyotes won't even find the bones." Eli ran then, couch-surfed his way to Denver, bounced between dead-end jobs and one-night stands that left him emptier than before. But Caleb found him last week, showed up at his dive bar gig with a grin like a razor and a threat wrapped in brotherly love. "Come home, or I'll make sure everyone knows what you are." So Eli fled north, hitching rides and sleeping in ditches, until the storm chased him straight to my gate. "I saw your sign," he said, staring into the fire I'd stoked in the hearth. "Harlan Ranch, bed and breakfast for strays." Sounded like a joke, but desperate times. I chuckled, low and rough, rubbing the back of my neck where tension knotted like barbed wire. "Yeah, well, the missus left a long time ago, so it's just me and the ghosts now. You can crash here tonight. Hell, longer if you need. But tomorrow we figure out a plan. Can't have you turning into a tumbleweed." He looked at me then, really looked, and in that gaze was something raw and electric like the air before lightning strikes. "Why? You don't even know me." "Because I've been you," I said simply, the words tasting like ash. chased out by folks who were supposed to love you, and because this place, it's big enough for two broken souls. That night, I gave him my spare room, the one with the quilt my grandma stitched from feed sacks, and lay awake in my own bed listening to the rain drum on the tin roof. Tommy's ghost hovered in the corners, his laugh echoing faint and mocking. But for the first time in years, it didn't choke me. Eli's presence was a quiet intrusion, a spark in the dark, and as thunder rolled distant, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, the storm had blown in more than trouble. Morning broke crisp and clear, the kind of Wyoming dawn that paints the plains gold and makes you believe in second chances. I found Eli in the kitchen, fumbling with the percolator, his borrowed sweats hanging loose on his lean frame. He'd cleaned up, face scrubbed pink, hair drying in soft waves, and damn if he didn't look like he'd stepped out of one of those dog-eared paperbacks I kept hidden in the barn. Vulnerable, yeah, but with a fire simmering underneath, like embers waiting for breath. "Sleep okay?" I asked, pouring feed into the trough outside the window for the chickens scratching at the frost. "Better than I have in months," he admitted, handing me a mug. His fingers brushed mine accidental-like, but the jolt was anything but. This place is like stepping into a postcard. Peaceful. Peaceful's one word for it. Lonely's another. I leaned against the counter, sipping black coffee strong as regret. "You eat yet? Got eggs from the hens? Bacon if you're not watching your figure." He laughed. A short, surprised bark that lit up his face, and it hit me like sunlight after winter. We ate at the scarred pine table, talking easy about nothing. The way the mountains turned purple at twilight, how the river ran high this year from meltwater, the old Ford truck that coughed like a smoker but never quit. Eli had a way of listening, head tilted just so, green eyes steady, making you feel like your words mattered. When he asked about the ranch, I told him the truth. How I'd inherited it from Dad after the cancer took him quick. How Tommy and I had poured our sweat into it, dreaming of a life simple and ours. How it all crumbled when he packed his bags one rainy afternoon, leaving a note that said, "I need more than sunsets, James." "I'm sorry," Eli said softly, reaching across the table. His hand covered mine, warm and tentative, and I didn't pull away. That kind of hurt. It sticks, doesn't it? Like burrs in a horse's tail. I flipped my palm up, lacing our fingers without thinking. His skin was smooth, city soft against my ranch ruff, and in that touch was a question neither of us voiced yet. "But you learned to ride with it." The days blurred into a rhythm after that, Eli sticking around like he'd always belonged. He pitched in without asking, mucking stalls at dawn, his laughter echoing when a calf butted his knee, fixing the leaky roof on the bunkhouse with tools he borrowed from my shed, swearing like a sailor when the hammer slipped. Evenings, we'd sit on the porch with beers pulled cold from the springhouse, watching stars punch holes in the velvet sky. He'd talk about Denver's neon haze, the underground clubs where men danced without fear, and I'd spin yarns about roundup season, the way the cattle lowed like a choir under full moon. One night, after a bonfire that crackled orange against the chill, Eli leaned his head on my shoulder, the weight of him solid and right. "James," he murmured, voice thick with whatever we'd been drinking, or maybe just the moment. "You ever think about what life's supposed to be? Not surviving it, but living it? All the damn time." My arm slipped around his waist, pulling him closer. His breath hitched, warm on my neck, and when he tilted his face up, lips brushing mine tentative as a fond step, I didn't hesitate. The kiss was slow at first, tasting of smoke and salt, then deeper, hungrier, like we'd both been starving for air. His hands fisted in my shirt, body arching into mine, and for the first time since Tommy, I let myself drown. We tumbled inside, clothes shedding like old skin, the bedroom door clicking shut behind us. Eli was all lean muscle and urgent need, mapping my scars with fingertips and mouth, whispering my name like a prayer. I took my time with him, reverent almost, tracing the bruises fading on his ribs, the curve of his hip where fear had carved hollows. When he came undone beneath me, gasping my name into the pillow, it felt like mending, stitching us both back from the edges. After, tangled in sheets that smelled of us, he traced the tattoo on my chest. A compass rose, inked after Tommy left, pointing nowhere but home. "This place," he said, voice husky. "It's healing me. You are." You're doing the same for me, Eli. I kissed his temple, the words slipping out easy as breath. Stay. Not because you have to, because you want to. He nodded, eyes shining in the moonlight slanting through the blinds. I want to, but want and reality have a way of tangling, like barbed wire in a blizzard. A week later, the first crack showed. Mail came with a letter for Eli, postmarked Cheyenne. No return address. He paled reading it, crumpling the paper before I could ask. Nothing, he muttered, but his hands shook as he burned it in the sink, ashes swirling down the drain like bad omens. I let it go, trusting the quiet we'd built, but doubt crept in like coyotes at dusk. Then Caleb called, Eli's phone buzzing late one night while I was out checking fences. I heard the tail end when I came back, Eli's voice low and pleading, No, I can't. Please, just leave it alone. He hung up, saw me in the doorway, and the lie in his eyes hit like a gut punch. What's going on, Eli? I asked, voice steady as I could make it. He swallowed hard, sinking onto the bed. Caleb, he knows I'm here, says if I don't come back and fix things, meaning deny who I am, play straight for the family, he'll come get me himself. Or worse, tell my mom. She's sick, James. Cancer. And she doesn't know. About me. The room tilted, anger and fear churning like bad whiskey. So what? You gonna run again? Or let that bastard bully you into a cage? I don't know. He stood, pacing, hands raking through his hair. This us. It's the first real thing I've had. But if he hurts her to get to me. We argued then, words flying sharp as hail, me accusing him of 1 foot out the door, him yelling that love wasn't some fairy tale, that family ties cut deeper than romance. He stormed out to the barn, and I let him, nursing a beer on the porch, staring at the stars that suddenly felt cold and distant. Dawn brought fragile peace. Eli found me saddling up for the back pasture, his eyes red-rimmed but determined. I'm not leaving, he said, taking the reins from my hands. Not for him, but I need to face this. Go to Cheyenne. Talk to Mom. Tell her the truth. With you, if you'll come. I searched his face, seeing the boy who'd collapsed on my floor and the man who'd claimed my heart. Yeah, I said finally, pulling him into a fierce hug. Together. The drive south was tense, the radio humming country ballads about lost loves and redemption, the Rockies giving way to rolling plains dotted with oil rigs. Eli's hand stayed in mine the whole way, a lifeline against the what-ifs swirling like dust devils. Cheyenne greeted us with flat gray skies and the smell of stockyards, the trailer park on the outskirts looking smaller, meaner than Eli's stories let on. His mom, Rita, answered the door with a cough that rattled her frail frame, her smile fading when she saw me. Tall, dusty stranger in boots and Stetson. Eli? Who's this? Mom, Eli started, voice steady despite the tremor in his grip on my arm. This is James, my partner. The word hung there, heavy as winter fog. Rita's eyes, faded blue like Eli's were green, widened, then softened with something like relief. Well, come in then. Coffee's on. We sat at her Formica table, the story spilling out in halting waves. Eli's truth, Caleb's rage, the beatings and the hiding. Rita listened, tears tracking silent down cheeks hollowed by chemo, then reached for Eli's hand. Baby, I knew. A mother always does. And I love you. Always have, queer or not. Eli broke then, sobbing into her shoulder, and I held them both, the knot in my chest loosening for the first time. But as we pulled away, tires crunched on gravel outside. Caleb's truck, jacked up on mutters, loomed like a threat. He barreled in without knocking, fists clenched, eyes locking on me like I was the devil incarnate. You, he snarled at Eli, ignoring his mom. I told you to fix this shit, not shack up with some cowboy faggot. Get out, Rita snapped, voice steel despite her weakness. He's my son, Caleb, and this man's more family than you've ever been. Caleb laughed, bitter and broken, stepping closer. Family? This rancho here thinks he can play house? Eli, you forget what Dad would have said? What I did to keep you straight. The air thickened, violence humming like a live wire. Eli stood, shielding me half instinct, but it was me who moved first, shoving Caleb back with a forearm like oak. You touch him, you deal with me. And boy, I've roped steers meaner than you on a bad day. He swung then, wild haymaker that grazed my jaw, splitting skin. I ducked the next, countered with a hook that dropped him to his knees, blood blooming on his lip. Eli yelled, pulling me back, and Rita grabbed the phone, dialing 911 with shaking hands. Caleb staggered up, hatred twisting his face, but something shifted. Maybe the sight of his mom, fierce in her frailty, or Eli's unyielding stare. "You're dead to me," Caleb spat, wiping his mouth. "Both of you." He stormed out, engine roaring to life, tires spinning dirt as he peeled away. The cops came, statements taken in the kitchen still smelling of burnt toast. Rita hugged us goodbye at the door, pressing a faded photo into Eli's hand. Him as a kid, grinning gap-toothed on a swing. Believe in this, boys. In each other. The drive home was quieter, the plains stretching endless under clearing skies. Eli's head rested on my shoulder at red lights, his whisper soft. "I thought I'd lose everything. You didn't." I kissed his knuckles, bruised from where he'd punched the dashboard earlier. "You gained it." Back at the ranch, spring unfurled tentative. Crocuses pushing through snowmelt, calves bleeding in the calving pens. Eli and I fell into a deeper groove, the kind forged in fire. Mornings tangled in bed, his laughter over burnt pancakes. Afternoons riding fence lines, his hand warm on my thigh as the horse swayed. We talked futures, not vague dreams, but real ones. Him finishing his mechanic cert online, maybe opening a shop in town. Me expanding the B&B, turning empty stalls into guest rooms for folks needing a soft landing. But betrayal has a long shadow. 2 weeks later, I found the letter. Not the ashes, but a carbon copy Eli had hidden in his duffel. Caleb's words, scrawled venom. "If you don't come back and denounce that queer life, I'll tell everyone in town about James. His daddy's grave, I'll piss on it. Make sure they know what a pervert he is." My stomach dropped, the paper crumpling in my fist. Eli walked in then, fresh from the shower, towel slung low, and froze at my face. "James? Oh God. You were gonna protect me? By going back to him?" The words lashed out, sharper than I meant. "After everything? No. I burned it because it was bullshit. I wasn't going anywhere." He reached for me, but I stepped back, the chasm yawning wide. "Lies, Eli. From the start. You came here running, but you brought the storm with you." He crumpled, tears hot on my shirt when I finally let him close. "I was scared of losing you, but I swear, James. Swears mean nothing when trust's shattered." I pushed him away gently, grabbing my hat. "I need air. The barn. Don't follow." Hours blurred in the dim light of hay bales and lantern glow, pitchfork stabbing deep into straw as if I could fork out the hurt. Tommy's ghost mingled with Eli's promises, whispering that love was a fool's game. When I trudged back at midnight, the house was dark, Eli's truck gone. A note on the table. "I love you enough to let you heal without me dragging you down. Forgive me someday. Eli." The emptiness hit like a stampede, hollowing me out. Days bled into weeks, the ranch a ghost town of one. I worked numb. Fencing, feeding, fixing. Nights staring at the ceiling, replaying every touch, every laugh. Rita called once, voice frail. "He told me, James. Said you're the best thing that ever happened to him. Give him time." But time stretched thin as barbed wire. Then, one August evening, thunder rumbling distant, a familiar truck rattled up the drive. Not Eli's, but mine, the one I'd loaned him months back. He stepped out, thinner, eyes shadowed, but holding a folder thick as hope. "James," he started, voice cracking. "Hear me out." I crossed my arms, heart hammering traitor fast. "You left. Said your goodbyes in ink." I went to Caleb. Not to beg. To end it. He thrust the folder at me. Restraining order papers signed and stamped, Caleb's signature shaky at the bottom. Therapy, too. For him. Court mandated after the fight. He's trying. And Mom's in remission. But me? I drove to Denver, got my cert, lined up a job at the garage in Sheridan. So I can stand on my own. Be your partner, not your stray. I flipped through the pages, the legal weight grounding me. Why now? After I pushed you away. Because you didn't push. You pulled me toward better. He stepped closer, hand out, palm up. And because I believe in us. In this. The storm broke then, not rain but me. I hauled him in, kissing fierce and forgiving, salt of tears mingling with the taste of homecoming. We made love slow under the stars that night, on a blanket by the fire pit. His body fitting mine like it was carved for the purpose. No ghosts, just us, raw, real, renewed. Months later, as fall painted the aspens flame orange, we stood on the porch, his arm around my waist, watching the first snow dust the peaks. The B&B sign swung gentle in the breeze, guests' trucks dotting the drive. Folks like us, finding shelter. Eli turned to me, green eyes steady as the mountains. You gave me a reason to believe, James. In love. In myself. And you, I said, pulling him close, gave me back my heart. In the end, it wasn't perfect. No story is. Not in this wild American heartland where winds howl secrets and skies stretch infinite. But it was ours. Scarred, stubborn, and shining with a quiet grace that said redemption wasn't a fairy tale. It was sweat and storms and choosing, every damn day, to believe again.